Hello and welcome back to the Forgotten Continent. This is the second episode of the brand new Planet Coaster series. Today we've been continuing from where we left off by entering the second land, which is of Greek Odyssey. Now this first building is going to be an information booth, and I can't really place what theme this is, to be honest. I think this is something I've really discovered with building this, is the freedom that I've been given from actually having a lack of a distinct theme, and it's more this sort of mythological mix of different cultures, very much like the Lost Continent in Universal's Island of Adventure. And that is why so many of these structures, I think, come from there, because there's a lack of reference photos really for this kind of weird mix of theming. And this one here is taken from the Sinbad's stage show. It's the facade outside that in Universal's Island of Adventure, with a little bit of my own twist on it. And what I wanted to do here was very much build off-grid, and I wanted to get something that I haven't really done before, which was really roughing up the sides, which you could see at the start by using the carved pieces in order to break through the plaster and show the stonework underneath. I'm continuing here with the temple pieces from the adventure pack, and we're going to build a small railing around the outside. That's something I've been seeing done a little bit on Bro Nation, which is using these tiny firework pieces as poles. And they come across fantastically for these railings. I mean, I couldn't think of any better way to do it, because I'm still incredibly wary of UGC and the Theme Maker's Toolkit. As great as the Theme Maker's Toolkit is, I'm very much worried of the instability of it. Sometimes I'm a bit worried about the actual art style of it as well. I don't know if it fits within the actual Frontier vibe. So, although I think it's a fantastic thing, and I'm really glad that we have it, I mean, it kept Rickard's Tycoon alive for as long as when I was around in the community. For me, I'm still very much on the fence of, I feel very comfortable with the Frontier design pieces, and I feel very worried when I'm ever using UGC. And that's why I have things like very high part count, tiny fireworks to make into railings, but I mean, that's part of the fun of the game, really. And that brings me on to my next thing, really, is that what I'm using a lot within this building in itself is the World's Fair pack, which when that came out, people really were very split on it. Some people felt it was just Frontier throwing out the loose pieces they hadn't used in the other sets, throwing together ideas that they hadn't really thought out. I actually have come to really enjoy this pack. In fact, I think it's been probably one of my most used packs since it's come out. I mean, the doors here are fantastic, the columns around it are fantastic. I mean, a lot of this building is based off that in the adventure pack. And with the Classics Ride collection just having come out after this video was recorded, I don't feel as inspired by these ride packs, mainly because, okay, I'm a scenery builder, that's very true, but I feel that I can do so much more with these pieces than I can with rides. And although I think it's fantastic we have more rides, I think it's always, in my mind, I will definitely enjoy more scenery. I think that's something a lot of people in the community have shared. I think people like Estan Wolf as well, I remember mentioned this as well, another great YouTuber you should check out. I think that I'm giving so much versatility by building with these off-grid pieces given in the adventure pack, or the pillars given the spooky pack, or the doors and windows given in the World's Fair pack. There's always useful things that come together that I would always take over some very unusual or very specific rides I wouldn't necessarily use all the time. But maybe that's just me. So that being said, going back to the time lapse, I've just roughened up the edges of the building there by using the chimney pieces. And this is probably the most parked account efficient way of doing it, and that is by sinking the pillars in and tilting them very slightly against the grain of the building, and that lets you get some jagged angles, some weird looking shapes and stuff. And although there are probably better ways to do it, I think this way is very nice and piece efficient, and it looks good on the building. And that's very much my approach with this, is that I very, very rarely use on-grid pieces. I mean, this building, there's a couple in here, but most of the time I will be using windows as walls. I'll be using the adventure pack pieces and stuff like that, just because of the versatility you can have to sink in these windows like I have here using the icing pieces behind the walls, and to have the scaffolding across it as well. I think the great thing that we have in this game is the ability to move with the Control X axis, the advanced move tool. I mean, I'm thinking back to Rickard's Tycoon 3 when you're always building on grids, and it was incredibly difficult to use, and now we're having such versatility that I think the best builders will always be the ones who build off-grid and use their own pieces and use their imagination. perhaps that's kind of my thinking with the Theme Maker's Toolkit, to be honest, is that even since Alpha, I remember using blue tin panels as water and signs as walls, and it's this entire philosophy behind Planet Coaster, which is just to use pieces in ways you can never think would be used. And I really don't want that to die with the coming in of UGC. And I think that's my number one fear with Theme Maker's Toolkit. That's probably my number one reason why I haven't picked it up, is that I don't want it to feel like it's taken away from my experience of the game or my style of the game. Not to say that it's any lesser, it's just it's not my way of playing. And this is when we come to the second half of the building. We're just building the two sides of it, and we're continuing with that ruined aesthetic by using the adventure pieces here. I initially wanted to go for a full top floor there. I realised it wouldn't really link up very well with the entrance bridge, so I decided to cut that off and use some of the ruined pieces. And again, these pieces are so useful for these things, and these are something I would be incredibly grateful with these packs for. Things that I hadn't really used at all in Trillium, and now I'm really enjoying them. Speaking of Trillium, actually, there's a lot going on in that park at the moment. It's a huge project, and I'm kind of enjoying taking a step back from it for a little bit to focus on the smaller projects to get my creative juices flowing, because one thing is that will become very clear about this park is that I have not planned this out as much as I have with Trillium. I don't necessarily know where I'm going, and that's part of the fun with it. I'm enjoying the fact that I'm not really risking anything with building this, other than perhaps a potentially good park. And just putting in behind there was the coloured pieces, just to show in the walls, and I really enjoy using those colour pieces to make sure the windows give a bit of depth to them over the usual texture of the windows. Filling the small planter here, just because I felt the bottom of it was quite plain, and in a second when this comes up I'm going to use the rose bushes actually, tinted to green, here it is, just to give a thicker version of the vines, and that's become something I use quite a lot. Now the next part of this time lapse is a bit of a messy segment, I think messy to say the least. I'm starting to build a corner restaurant that'll be the first thing you see when you come under the bridge, and so I want this to be a good first impression. Unfortunately, I did not like what I initially built, and this is something I actually decided to keep in, just to sort of show you the process of going through. These time lapses may be only 5-10 minutes long, but there's 6 or 7 hours of footage behind each one, with multiple remaking of each time. And this is just one of the failures I had within it. I was initially going for a very simple Greek style to it, and as you'll see in the real-time segment later on, I end up scrapping that stuff because I just hate it so much. But that means that what I did keep was these two corner segments. I like the idea of it being on a corner here with the two flanking sides. So I start off with the arches, built the roofs over the top, and then I start working on a nice trellis over the top where I can put the seating underneath. Again, I wouldn't really say there's a specific style to this building. It feels Greek, that's kind of what I'm going for, but I think this whole area does confuse me architecturally, especially these pillars. I mean, this was a complete accident that I managed to create them, but it was basically by glitching the textures of the two types of pillars together with two different colours. And it means that from pretty much every angle apart from a certain distance away, it gives you these lovely zigzag patterns on the pillars that add a lot of colour to it. I've never seen anyone do them before. I mean, if someone has, I wouldn't be the first, but I think it's something that's really unique for this building and makes it stand out amongst what would really just be a normal corner building. And I'm just continuing here with the continuation of the windows around the side of the restaurant, next to the two doors there, and I'm going to build out the two wings. And although I did a lot more this week, this is one thing I really found, because I was away in New York for most of this week and I really want to get a video out still, most of the work I did do is off camera, and that's why I've introduced a real-time segment into this video which will come after this time lapse. And even the time lapse is very sporadic, so I apologise for that, but what I'll pass over to now is my real-time self. So, welcome to the Lost Kingdom. If you can ignore the mess that is the left side of this frame, we can welcome our first guests into this land, and I'm really happy with this initial composition actually. I think it really gets that ruined aesthetic that I want out of this fallen and forgotten kingdom. This composition is very crudely ripped off as will be the theme for most of this real-time segment. It's ripped off from Universal Studios, Islands of Adventure specifically actually, with this large ruined town on the left-hand side with the tree surrounding it and the fountain at the end. As you saw in the first episode's time-lapse, this is the bridge with a nice curved circular theming around the side that leads people across to this first section. I didn't really show this off in the first time-lapse actually. This is my first attempt at a retaining wall, which was in all the reference photos. I thought I'd give it a go. Incredibly piece heavy. I'm actually quite terrified to think how many pieces these are. But again, the one main advantage of doing something in a very compact part like this means we can do things like this and this. The custom brickwork made out of these statue ears, I think it adds so much more texture than just using the normal brick in the game. As good as the normal brick is, I like having the depth and the ability to move pieces around and recolour, and as well to sink in custom windows as well. So although this is not the most efficient way of doing it, I do not recommend this for this park. It fits it absolutely perfectly. Not less piece heavy is this fountain actually, the offering fountain that first greets people into the park. I think only about 5 or 6 pieces, but it does exactly what I want it to do. And it's a nice welcoming weenie, for want of a better word, into the main park. Behind us, as you also saw in the first time lapse, is another Universal Studios rip-off. This is a very crude bootleg of the Poseidon's Fury gift shop in Islands of Adventure. I'm not quite sure what theme this is. I think it's Greek, but it doesn't feel very Greek. And this has basically become the basis for the rest of this land, as this weird sort of hybrid of mythology and culture, which you can't quite place, but looks really cool. And I'm really, really happy that this one came out, as messy as it is. And then, passing under the simple stone bridge, we reach the first view. And yes, you're going to hate me, this is completely different to the one in the time-lapse. This is because I basically went away. We went away to New York for a week, and while I was there I had some more thinking about the composition of it, and I really thought this was the better fit for it. Adding a dome around the top and adding the 2 towers on the sides, I think this is a far better first impression than we had initially, because I just could not go in any direction. That being said, sorry about the camera there, I've kept the main pillars on the bottom down here that were before, and I've, oh god, missing a piece there, sorry, and I've put the wall windows in that were there originally, and we'll have a look inside there in a second. Behind us, which wasn't on the time-lapse, is this extension of the archway here, and this isn't a Universal Studios rip-off. This is actually a semi-original building, which is crazy, and this is made using the stucco coin pieces, I think they're called, the trim pieces basically, sunk in to make different patterns of brickwork. And this little curved window here is nicked from a very good Planet Coaster friend of mine, Bear Power. He is incredible, and I'm collaborating with him at the moment, and he gave me this idea of creating this round window, and I definitely thought I'd introduce that there. Behind us is, yes, another Universal Studios rip-off. Except I'm really happy with how this one came out. It's very different to the other ones, but I think the amount of detail I have within it is this very distinct style, and the tiny fireworks used came up absolutely perfectly, and I definitely will use them again. A fantastic little feature I can use in the other parts of the park. I think the facade came across really well, and I'm really happy with how, when you look from this angle, how it fits in with the colours of the orange roofs, with the blue, and the pale pastel colours of the walls. I think the whole composition comes together really nicely, and although they're very different cultural themes, they fit together. And now to fulfil my promise. Looking inside, this is the interior of the Greek restaurant. We have this opening courtyard centre here with a nice high domed roof above. And here we have a pip shot and a Dune Delights. And this will be some sort of quick serve / sit down service. I haven't quite decided how the operations work yet. That's why I'll probably fit in some sort of barrier system there in order to allow people to queue more effectively. If we skip around these tables, we can find the main dining area, which I may need to extend behind this water feature here. Oh, excuse the camera, sorry. And it's this large vine area with another large stone ceiling, the arches, and the vines and flowers. And I think it's all come together really nicely, really pleasantly. But again, it may be extended. And of course, we've got a little pattern floor on the way out. And I'm afraid it's all we have time for today in the Forgotten Continent. I'm really happy with the amount of progress made, even if it's incredibly sporadic. And I really hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I'll see you very soon.